Welcome to another Smart Solutions Showcase webinar. My name is Will, as I've just said. This is Ben Phillips, who is the Partnerships Director for Bubltown. I was a bit confused. Is it Bubltown or Bubltown Thrive? Do you kind of...
It's Bubltown, but
it is Bubltown.
Bubltown Thrive, yeah.
Okay, the platform is Thrive. So what is Bubltown? Well, briefly, I could say that it's a platform to transform towns and cities through information, offerings, and providing support. Maybe that's quite a basic overview. So, as I've just said, there's a few more that's joined us. If you do have any questions as we go along, just pop them in the chat, and I will ask them at the end when Ben's stopped presenting. So, if I hand you over to Ben, thank you very much.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name's Ben Phillips. As William said, I'm the Public Partnerships Director for Bubltown, and I'll be taking you through today a little bit about what the Bubltown proposition is. In order to do that, I'm going to share a slide presentation. I'll keep it brief because I know how dull sometimes slide presentations can be, and I'm sure over the last couple of years, everyone's seen millions of them. But then we'll move into a bit of a demo of what the platform and the service actually looks like when it's deployed with a local authority and working in a local place. So I'm going to share my screen now. If anyone can't see it, then please do let me know. But I'm going to assume until someone tells me otherwise that you can. So the Bubltown proposition has been around. We've been around for about 3.5 years now, albeit we only actually launched the first projects with local authorities in October 2021, so just last year. But prior to that, we were working underneath a DIT scheme with a multi-million-pound R&D budget to look at, quite simply, the brief was, what is the future of town centres and high streets? And over time, what we've done is we've built both a platform and an augmenting service, which I'll talk through, which we went live with 2 local authorities in England and in Northern Ireland in October 21. And we've now started working with a further 20 recently to go live in their areas too since then. And the proposition is effectively, it's technology based. We're a software as a service company. But it combines everything from business support to digital skills, inclusion, placemaking, resident rewards, and beyond. And it's all driven via one platform and service, which is Bubltown. So I'll go into a little bit about the why. I'm sure everybody on this call knows the why we might exist infinitely, but really the problem that we set out to solve is the fact that since digital evolution has started to exponentially increase, we have found less reason to connect with physical places. We have less need, etc., to visit high streets, to visit town centres, and to visit the local businesses within them, which means that ultimately spend in town centres is going down. Businesses in those town centres are struggling to cover their overheads because they do have overheads to cover that a digital-only business doesn't, like staff, utilities, rent, business rates, and therefore the number of vacant units is going up. So that creates a bit of a vicious cycle, which actually decreases the value proposition to an end customer of our town centres and of our high streets. So we set out to solve that problem, looking at all of the different components that you would need to, such as supporting the businesses, but also creating the value for the customers to visit town centres and high streets, and so on. We know that with digital evolution, customer behaviour has changed. Again, I'm sure you've seen a million slides like this, but essentially, because we have access to all of these new technologies, we can now buy what we want without going anywhere. We can entertain ourselves without going to the movies. We can catch up with friends without having to go to the local coffee shop. We can get food delivered to our door without going to the local restaurant, and we can get our groceries delivered to us. So we actually don't need to go out in the same way as we used to, which is where town centres and high streets were born, is the need for proximity to customers. And because of those technologies, the experience that we demand from local businesses, but equally local town centres and high streets, has changed, because no longer are we okay with just deciding that we're going to get into our cars, drive to the local high street, get out, park, walk to the business, buy what we want, or redeem the service that we want, and then get back in our cars and go home. We now expect everything to be on demand. We expect it to be with the least amount of friction possible. So touch of a button, mobile apps, for example. We know that we need things instantly. The human tendency for I need this now is only increasing. And we know we need things with great value for money, not least of which now, of course. And just to contextualize the scale of this change that's happening, the digital evolution is taking so many different forms. But the amount of money and the amount of time that we're all investing online now is actually extraordinary, and it is going very, very quickly in that direction. So to give some local stats, 70% of all shopping journeys are now starting online. That's regardless of whether you end up in store or whether you're at the local hairdresser. It will start online. That's where you do your research. 90% of people are doing their research for local businesses online before they get there. So this big problem that we have in terms of creating awareness in local areas for local businesses is actually a really big problem online. We know that since the start of the pandemic, 24,300 seconds is obviously a dramatic way of framing it, but 6 hours and 45 minutes, essentially a week, is extra time that we're spending online. So that's regardless of the time that we were already spending online prior to the pandemic. That's 6 hours, 45 minutes more per week. And that is equating to increasing amounts of spend being driven online. As you can see there, 3.6 trillion with a huge estimate. And that is 73% of which is now being driven by mobile devices. So it's not just a case of getting on board with e-commerce anymore. You know, there are these evolving channels that businesses will all have to get used to and all have to compete in if they want to survive. And what's happened over time is that local businesses are left with a pretty impossible choice because, as I said, they deal with a different type of commerce. They deal with what we call local commerce, which is they have overheads like staff, like utilities, like a property. They don't have the ability to just go along with an Amazon type proposition or a Deliveroo type proposition because they're not built for them. So businesses have one of three options. They can either do nothing, which is whether it's because they don't have the digital skill, they don't have the knowledge, they don't understand the scale of the digital evolution. The do nothing response eventually will mean that that business doesn't survive. The second option is to try to compete, and that would be going directly head to head against the Tesco's, the IKEAs, the Amazons of this world by investing millions, which unless you met lots of local businesses that I haven't, they don't necessarily have, and building marketing capabilities in a digital sphere, which they're not used to, building next generation logistics capabilities and so on. And the barriers to entry for them to do that are obviously very, very high. So it won't be many who can compete effectively. The third option, of course, is that they can decide to join. So that would be to join an Amazon or to join an eBay and to join Treatwell if you're a service business, or sell your tickets via Ticketmaster. And those platforms are the ones who were, in the first instance, taking customers away from local places. So it must rub a little bit in the wrong direction. But then also, the fees that those businesses charge are built for businesses that don't have physical presences. So again, it doesn't necessarily make commercially viable sense for a local business. So I'm not going to say that there haven't been attempts to help local businesses to get more familiar with trade online, but they all fail for various different reasons, and there are various different reasons. So I'm not going to go and try and go into all of them right now. But fundamentally, what's happening is that there is no way at the moment for local businesses to build a compelling enough platform which is aggregated in terms of a place that can draw customer attention away from the big boys who are spending the millions and millions of pounds, which is where Bubltown comes in. So our internal brief to ourselves was to build a local platform, local first, with the power to fight back against the big platforms. And what we would do is we would simultaneously add value to both the buyers and the sellers. So that's helping the businesses to sell by promoting them, giving them next generation tools and capabilities to trade, but then also making it worthwhile for the buyers to visit this platform and to get value, incremental value that they wouldn't be able to get anywhere else other than in the place, the physical place. And in that way, what we do is we add value to the buyers, which add value to the sellers, and we create that virtuous cycle of local economic success, which brings people back into our town centres and high streets, that then creates that level of ongoing economic prosperity. And that is what Bubltown is. So Bubltown is that platform. We recently were awarded the Global Platform of the Year. We have just been appointed to the Crown Commercial Services DPS Spark Innovation Framework, which is for advanced technology businesses. And we're also working with the Association of Town Centre Management. But essentially what we do is we build solutions for places and we work with local authorities to deploy them. And our platform is the only one in the world that deals in what we call local commerce. And I would be absolutely delighted if anyone would like to read the white paper that we've just released on local commerce. It's L-commerce is the abridged version. It's what we see as the future of local places, town centres, high streets. We co-authored it with Brent Council, one of our early partners, and the ATCM, who are a governing body for this. And I'd be more than happy to send it through and get your thoughts after this. But fundamentally, our platform is the only one that can knit together the different strands of commerce that you would want to see in a town centre or a high street, which is on street as a primary. So this is bringing people in. This is not about driving trade online, but equally giving businesses the ability to drive trade online should they so wish. But this is all about creating engagement with a physical place and with the businesses within it. The example that you can see at the bottom there is one of the platforms that we have live with one of our local authority partners, and I'll take you through that in a moment. From a business support perspective, any business that joins the platform, and this is in any version of the local marketplace, can access various different tools and features, all of which are significantly reduced in terms of the cost to them versus any of the other platforms that they might be able to join. And a lot of it is actually free. But just to give you a flavor, and there's obviously much more to it than this, any business can join the platform for free and promote their services. They might be a retail business, an experience business, a service business, professional services, an attraction, an event. Everyone can join and everyone can promote what they do. And that means they can really drive that awareness piece. The second thing is they can run a campaign. So they can use that platform to run a campaign to bring customers to their physical place of business. So that's by promoting a deal, for example, or promoting early bird access to residents of a place to tickets, for example. Lots of different ways that can be done, but that's all free. And if you think about the comparable, a business like Groupon, who also allows businesses to run campaigns, number one, a lot of local businesses can't actually work with Groupon just because of the integrations required. But number two, Groupon charges 50% on the deal price. So that would mean that if you were selling an afternoon tea, for example, at £28, you give 50% off, that's £14. You're only making £7 out of that, and you've got to deliver the entire service for it. So there's a significant value exchange. The other pieces then relate to different things that businesses can do, but just so you know, the businesses within the platform, if they're a retail business, can take orders for collection, for delivery, and that could be for now, for later, or for next day, etc. If they are an experience-based business, they'll be able to sell tickets. Service-based businesses to take reservations and appointments. You can list events, you can promote attractions, etc. But the idea here is that we can create a digital version of a physical town centre or a high street or place. And I'll talk about more how, if you have, let's say, 20 town centres or high streets in your area, then how this platform and this service scales to suit that as well. This is not just about single towns and single high streets. Again, I can answer some questions on this, but just so you all know before I go into the demonstration, the technology is only piece one of what we do. We are a service provider as well as a technology provider. So the platform is all deployed by us. We manage it from end to end, but also we work with the businesses to onboard them and then support them on an ongoing basis. So that is getting them set up for success, promoting it to them so that they know the value that they can get from it, and then also working with them, like I said, on an ongoing basis to drive what we call business growth, which is where we help them to understand what they might do to increase their sales, to increase their reach, to increase their brand awareness. The third piece is then marketing. So this is working with the local authority and any other partners that exist in the area, all of which we workshop together at the beginning of any project. And we drive the awareness of the platform and drive people into it so that we can really, really create that value. So I'm going to pause there with the presentation. I said I was only going to spend a little bit of time. I'm hoping that's not too long. And I'm now going to switch over to my mobile phone just to show you one of the applications that the platform comes attached with. And then I'll open up for some questions because I'm sure there will be some. Okay, so can everybody see my phone?
Yes.
Brilliant. So this is live, by the way. If any notifications pop up that shouldn't, please do avert your eyes. But up at the top of the screen there, you should hopefully see 4 apps. The one on the left-hand side is our showcase application. So that's actually something that a customer will never see. It's never Bubltown to the end customer, as I'll explain in a moment, but it is where we do all of our research and development. We have a 5-year pipeline that is looking at what we need to do to support the businesses in town centres and high streets, to drive engagement with town centres and high streets. And we're releasing lots of new features over that 5-year period that get deployed into our showcase app, and then automatically into any local iteration of the platform that exists. So this is not something that you have to buy again and again and again. It will automatically update over time. The 2 apps in the middle, which I'll go into in a moment, are 2 examples of local platforms that exist. The names, the identity, etc., can all be decided by the authority, and we will obviously consult on that depending on your priorities. And I'll go into one of those in a moment, but just so you know, the application on the right-hand side is one of the 2 applications that businesses have in order to be able to access and administer their profiles within the system, to use them for trade, to promote their events, etc. The reason that we have an app as well as a web-based dashboard is that over our time spent in R&D, we've realized that a lot of local businesses don't actually have a computer on the shop floor. And therefore, if they don't have a mobile app and the ability to download it onto any smartphone, then they actually can't administer that profile during the day, and therefore it becomes a little bit redundant. So there are those 2 applications. There is another application online. So each of the customer-facing apps by Brent Shop MEA that you can see there, and about 20 more that I can talk about in a moment, they all have a corresponding website. So this is not just an app, this is an app and a website. All of the content is linked, so it's all updated in real time, but you can access it via a browser instead of having to go to a mobile app. And there is also a local authority dashboard, which gives analytical capabilities. You can look at spend, businesses that are being promoted, you can look at footfall patterns, you can triangulate intent, lots of different things, including the ability to use it as a communications platform. You can actually send push notifications directly through it at any point, and that's all from the local authority dashboard and more. But for now, what I thought I would do is just show you an example of what one of these local platforms look like. So By Brent is our partnership with Brent Council, which is in London. And By Brent was decided as the name and the identity because they had a real priority to drive trade with local businesses and drive spend essentially in town centres and high streets. So By Brent was the name they decided on, but there are lots of other different authorities who are using this platform for different things, like placemaking or culture building. So in Newcastle, the platform is called Geordie Street. In Northamptonshire, it's called Discover NN. In West Northamptonshire, I think they're going with something more along the placemaking lines. In Folkestone and Hythe, it will be Experience FH. So there's lots of different ways that you can cut this, and we work with you on that basis. But to show you an example of what this looks like, so this is by Brent. Brent, as you may or may not know, Brent has about 10 different town centres that I'll talk through in a second. But this first screen that you arrive on here is what we call place level discovery. And place level discovery is essentially all of the businesses, all of the events, all of the attractions that are within a place, organized in terms of their proximity to me. So wherever I am, when I open up this app, the geolocation feature takes over and says, these are the businesses, the events, the attractions that are nearest to you. So you always have a hyper-localized experience, regardless of where you are within the umbrella of place. You can navigate through business categories, and there is a category for every type of local business here. So this is designed to support every type of local business. Doesn't matter if it's service experience, retail, professional services, so on. But you've also got the ability to look at things like events. You can have a look in an interactive events calendar, and any business or the authority and or its partners can feed into this events calendar again in real time. So this keeps up to date. You can look at attractions, etc. These horizontal sliders up at the top can be configured to promote whatever priorities it is that you have, whether it is about driving online delivery or driving footfall into businesses. So for example, this example here is a pub in Brent that is offering what we call a walk-in offer. And walk-in offers are designed to drive people to my physical place of business. So I'm not actually trading online. All I've done is I've created this so that people know that on a certain day at a certain time, they can come in and they can get 50% off. And all I do as a customer is I click claim offer, redeem offer, and then there's just a barcode that I show when I go into the store. The store can integrate that with their POS system using barcode, but in the business app, they can just use the business app scanner to scan that, and that essentially records the redemption in their analytics, but also in the local authorities' analytics, so you can see what's happening. Again, there are various different things that I can go into here, but I'm just going to give an abridged overview because I'm quite keen to open up for questions. But in terms of the search features, what you can do within the platform is create different communities within the place. So Brent, as I mentioned, has got lots of different town centres and high streets, Wembley being one of them. So this now is effectively an app within an app, and obviously online, this is the same. So you could navigate direct to Wembley from Brent. But essentially now, these are just the businesses, the events, the attractions that are within Brent now. With Wembley, sorry. And you can search through in exactly the same way as that first screen, but just more specifically about Brent. You can search for products, services, experiences, businesses, etc. It'll find it all here. And you can also use the integrated map feature to look around, to zoom in, to see businesses that might be in a particular area, look at their profile. I'll show you a business profile in a moment. And you can search and filter that map as well. So to show you a business profile, let me show you one that went live recently. So if I search for, say, Blue Check is a restaurant in Brent, and they have created a profile, and they are using both walk-in offers, but they're also a retail business using some of the delivery and collection functionalities. So the profile is completely interactive. And again, this is all administered from the business themselves. We support them on that basis, but they have their own profiles to access and administer. You've got click to call functionality. The navigation is all native. So essentially, wherever you are within the borough or the district or the county, you can open up this and you can figure out, based on real-time transport information, how long it's going to take you to get there, what the walking routes are, public transport information, etc. Again, without leaving, you can navigate direct to a business's website or social media page if they have one. You can look at more information, opening hours, and then you can also chat directly to the business, send pictures, etc. through the chat feature if the business wants to offer it. The features that this business is using, so you've already seen a walk-in offer. So this is, again, they're not trading online. This is all about bringing a customer to their physical place of business. So they're basically running a campaign to reach new customers and acquire them in person. That works in exactly the same way that I've just shown you. But then equally, what I could do is I could add products to a basket. I can check that basket out for collection or for delivery. And that is again based on time slots or whatever it might be that the business has set up themselves or we have helped them to set up. So this isn't about businesses having to suddenly be available at times they weren't previously. This is just about making sense for them. And then I could check that out from end to end within the platform. So that is all the way through from adding it to the basket to paying. We're integrated with one of the world's leading payment gateways, so it's fully PCI compliant. And essentially that then drives your trade, and the businesses can do whatever they need to from their own applications. That is a very, very top level overview of what we do. But like I said, this is we see this as a partnership. So we work with local authorities. We put an account director and a project manager onto every project, and we knit together these three different strands that I talked about of technology, business support and onboarding, and marketing to drive the implementation. So William, you said half an hour. I'm pretty close, I think, to half an hour. I think I've probably talked too much, and I'm hoping.
Brilliant. That was brilliant. Yeah. I have to say, I love how easy the app looks to navigate, because a lot of the apps these days, I mean, I know I've told you before, I compare it a bit like Uber Eats, but it's just super easy and super functional. So I think anybody can easily grasp it. Could I ask, does anybody else have any questions? I know I have a couple. If you want to pop them in the chat. I'll wait a second. I will ask one. So you are able to track spend. Could you go into a bit more detail on that? And so do you work with the, have you got contracts with the debit card, credit card companies to get that information?
So through the platform, any trade that is driven through the platform. So
okay.
Yeah, so if a customer decides that they want to attend an event that a business is promoting, or they want to buy a ticket or book a service or buy a product, then or claim a walk-in offer, all of that is recorded at the business level in the business's dashboard, and they can see it with reports. They can use some of our predictive and prescriptive analytics to identify, how they might improve. And then that gets rolled up at the place level to show the local authority essentially the aggregated view. So that is how much spend, how much trade is being driven at the place level as a result of the platform. And that can be triangulated for a lot of different things, like looking at footfall, where people are coming from, so you can identify differences between the visitor and the resident community. There's lots of different ways of using those analytics.
Okay, brilliant. I've got one question here from Dylan. Have you got an example of where you've developed in a bilingual area?
So we're actually just deploying in our first multilingual area. So we are working in Norway, and I believe the next one is Dubai after that. And that is just making sure that we can present both in English and or a native language. So yes, we're working on it. The platform has complete bilingual capabilities, but no, we don't have a live example that isn't in English at the moment.
Brilliant. I hope that answers your question, Dylan. Another question I have is that you said that you offer businesses support. Now, I know I've been working with Smart Towns for a while now, and I know that it's quite hard to get through to some businesses. So how do you what is the support that you offer? Is it kind of a phone call? Do you send them links online, or?
It depends on the place. So when we set up the projects, we usually identify the right channels for business support. Typically, it will involve all support channels you might expect, which would be anything from in-person visits to phone calls to Skype calls, Teams calls, whatever it needs, essentially to get through to that business, knowing that obviously when we're dealing with local businesses, we're not dealing with businesses who on average have huge levels of digital skill, because that's not why you open a local business. You would just trade online if you were hugely skilled. So we will work to build a program of business support. That's more about business engagement, but the business support side is essentially, once we have helped to identify that this would benefit you, how do we make use of that? So for example, we have business growth partners who will work with every business, and they will look for challenges that you have. So if your challenge is awareness, then they'll help you to run a campaign to build awareness.
Okay.
If your challenge is something to do with, I don't know, maybe you're really quiet on a Tuesday morning, for example, they'll help you to run a campaign to increase your trade on a Tuesday morning.
Okay, brilliant. I think I've got another one from Dylan. Is there an opportunity to integrate with presence sensing, i.e., can you see if there's a quiet area and therefore make an offer? Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. So there are actually two sides to the answer to that question. There is a manual side. So at the moment, there are manual reports that will show businesses whether it's quiet, whether there is a hook that they can use to tap into an audience. But we are also building. I'm going to use the word AI. AI is actually a very broad definition, but it's essentially machine learning to help them identify that automatically as well.
Okay, Victoria, how do you calculate your footfall?
So footfall in the platform at the moment is triangulated based on intent. So we can't sense footfall other than people who are in the platform. But because the platform is geolocated, we know, and it works in the background, so you don't necessarily have to have the app open if you've selected that it's allowed to track your location. What we can do is we can see movement, so we can see where people are traveling, but then equally, every time you open it up, we call that intent. And so we can say this is where people are when they're actually triggering intent, and that might be in a specific town centre or whatever it is. And therefore we can triangulate what people are doing and where.
Okay, brilliant. I know that we work with a lot with actual sensors in shops, so maybe it would be a good idea in the future, maybe like to integrate something like that as well, so you get like a real-time kind of understanding.
From an integrations perspective, sorry, William, just on that point, the platform is open API, which from an integrations perspective just means that it's capable of being integrated with any other system.
Oh, okay. Oh, brilliant. Any more questions in the chat? No. So you spoke about Groupon and the prices they charge. Could you just run through quickly, like, because you said it's free for a business, obviously maybe a county or whatever pays an initial fee to you to set it all up, then it's free for the businesses. So how do you make money off businesses?
So we work on two levels. So the platform and the service, obviously, we have spent 3.5 years developing. So what we do is we subsidize the cost of all of that R&D and all of our ongoing support. But we do ask local authorities for an initial implementation fee. So it's basically project setup and implementation. That will be depending on the size of the area, the number of businesses, etc. There are various ways that we can look at that. For businesses within the area, the authority can use this as a commercialization platform themselves if they want to, and I can talk more about that probably on an individual basis. But usually what we do is we say it is completely free for customers to join, but also for businesses to join. The only fee that a business pays is a 3% plus 10p processing charge on successful transactions that are driven through the system. So for example, a walk-in offer, there would be no charge. Just promoting services wouldn't be a charge. It's only if you sell something, or if you have a service booked, or if you sell a ticket, for example, that there would be any charge whatsoever to a business. And that just incentivizes us to keep driving it.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Brilliant. I've got a couple more questions here. I've got Merlin asking, can you run through how you develop the relationship with local authorities and how that work funded, and also what extent they have to hook in user business, and to what extent you work. Ask the first one. Can you go through how you develop relationships with local authorities?
Yeah, sure. So depending on the team that we engage with, it might be someone in the place directorate, it might be someone in the business support team, town centres team, local economic development. There are various different stakeholders who we work with, but typically what happens is there will be an entry point for someone who says we need a platform to either promote our place or support our local businesses, whatever it might be. We then work with them to understand who the other stakeholders within both the authority, but also external partner organisations, whether that be bids or chambers of commerce or the FSB or whoever it might be. There might be a number of partners that we can engage. And what we do in the setup and implementation phases, we network together all of those partners and we workshop several different things to get to a point where the platform goes live. So the first workshop will be branding, white labeling. So that is, what is the name, what is the identity that you want to put on this thing, for your county, for your town, whatever it might be. And that will be based on the priorities that you have, but equally if you have any local brand design guidelines that you want to stick to. But we'll workshop that. Once we've decided that, the platform then goes live. So we white label the Bubltown technology to do that. Second thing that we do is we then look at the value proposition. So we will look at your place and we will say, if people wanted to come to your place or you wanted to drive people to your place, what are the things that you'd want them to know? And that is, who are the businesses? What are the things to do? What are the, where are the places to stay? And what we'll do is we will target those businesses to get them onboarded first. So we create that base level of value proposition. What we then do as a next step is we work on the business engagement piece. So that's where we lay plans, and that might be a combination of us plus our partners going out and seeing businesses, talking to businesses, getting them registered, getting them onboarded, and then working with them to ensure ongoing growth. And we usually do that for about a month prior to the platform going live to end customers, because obviously you don't want to go live to end customers until you've got a decent value proposition to put to them. So you want to onboard businesses first, train them, and then you go live to end customers. And that's where you have, we talk in terms of two phases. You have a hard launch, which is where you usually build in some kind of compelling offer. You go big with PR, with social media, etc., to drive it. But then equally what you do is you move into a period of ongoing communication, which is where you keep the momentum going.
Brilliant. Then he asked, to what extent do they have to hook in user business, and to what extent do you work to engage local traders?
Yeah, so we have a team that is specifically set up for business engagement and onboarding. Yeah. So to give an example, in Brent, in Mid and East Antrim, which was Shop MEA, in Newcastle, in Haringey, which is another London borough, we are going live with anywhere between 400 to 500 businesses prior to launch, and then the registrations are going up beyond that. So it's quite, I'm not going to use the word easy, it's not easy to engage with local businesses necessarily, but the value proposition is such that we can actually get quite a large volume onboarded.
One more question, Lee. What is the typical cost of the implementation fee for local authorities? That's a good question. I like that question.
I'm quite aware that this is going online somewhere. So,
does it differ with different authorities?
It does. So I think for anyone who's interested, I'd be absolutely delighted to have a conversation offline about the costs. All I'll say is that it is certainly not insurmountable. We have priced this with our market in mind.
That's more than fair. I'll be sure to send your information over to everybody that's been in this webinar as well. Okay, another question by Merlin. One of the issues we face locally is over tourism, and this is a big concern to Gwynedd Council and Snowdonia Park Authority. There are projects looking at how that can be managed using digital resources. Is it possible to bolt together with bigger non-traditional partners like Park Authority so as not to have overlapping competition digital schemes?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll split that answer into two parts. The first part is, when we look at the local audience, we break it down into 4 groups, which just helps with communication. The 4 groups, and I'm talking about customers here, are residents, visitors, students, and workers. So anyone who lives, works, learns, or studies. Lives, works, learns, or visits the borough or the county. And essentially we have a slightly different proposition or a slightly different way that we communicate to those groups, and that includes the channels, the messages, etc. So we can target the visitor community very specifically if tourism is a big driver. The second thing is, if there are existing what we call anchor institutions like the Snowdonia Park Authority, then we have different ways of integrating them within the system, and that could be at the business level. But equally, we can integrate with schemes that might exist in the area as well. I mean, to use an example, we're working with the London Borough of Merton, and they have a scheme already, a loyalty scheme there called Love Wimbledon, and that is going to be integrated within the platform. So you can basically bring all of this together in one place.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. I've learned a lot.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you everybody else for joining us. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.